What if I told you that the average American pantry wouldn't last more than a week in a real emergency? And here's the kicker. Most people don't even realize how unprepared they are until it's too late. In this video, I'm going to show you the top 10 foods that never really go bad. Yes, one of them is already in your kitchen. How to store them so they stay fresh for years, not weeks, and why flavor matters even when you're trying to survive. I've done the research, read through expert guides, and yes, even opened a few mystery cans from my own stash. Spoiler, one smelled like regret. So whether you're worried about inflation, supply chain issues, or just want to be ready for the next big storm, this video is for you. Stick around till the end because I'll also share a bonus tip on how to rotate your food so nothing goes to waste, and how to upgrade boring survival meals with spices you probably already own. Before we dive in, drop a comment below. Have you ever run into a shortage, price hike, or grocery panic buying situation recently? Let me know what made you start thinking about your own emergency food plan. All right, let's get into it. So, what makes a food survival ready? It's not just about picking the stuff that sits in your pantry the longest. Preppers look for a few key things before they stock up. And no, it's not all about canned beans and mystery meat. First off, shelf life. That's the big one. If it goes bad in 6 months, it's not helping you in a long-term emergency. You want foods that last years, not weeks. Some can even last decades if stored right. Think rice, salt, or even honey. Yeah, honey never really goes bad. But here's the thing. Expiration dates are more like suggestions. That cereal you bought 3 months ago, it's probably still fine to eat, just maybe not as crunchy as it used to be. Another factor is calories. In a survival situation, you need energy. So you want foods that pack a punch without taking up too much space. Sugar, peanut butter, protein bars, these are all calorie dense and easy to store. Nutrition matters too. You can't live on crackers and sugar alone, well, maybe for a little while. You need some balance. Proteins, carbs, fats, and yes, even vitamins. That's why preppers mix things up. Beans for protein, grains for carbs, and nuts for healthy fats. And let's not forget taste. Yeah, survival food doesn't have to be bland. Spices, sauces, and even freeze-dried veggies can make a huge difference when you're eating out of a can every day. So, the best survival foods check a few boxes: long shelf life, high calories, good nutrition, and something that makes your meal actually taste decent. Now that you know what to look for, let's talk about the top foods that hit all those marks. Stick around, this is where it gets interesting. 1. Salt and sugar. When it comes to survival food, salt and sugar might not be the first things you think of, but trust me, they're two of the most powerful items you can have in your emergency pantry. Salt is basically a superhero in a shaker. Pure salt, like sea salt or pink Himalayan salt, lasts forever. No joke, it doesn't go bad. That makes it perfect for long-term storage. And it's way more than just a flavor booster. You can use salt to preserve meat, keep milk fresh longer, and even help with hydration by giving your body important minerals. But not all salt is created equal. Some types, like iodized salt, have additives that cut their shelf life down to about 5 years. Still good, but not as great as the pure stuff. So if you're stocking up for the long haul, go for the additive-free versions. Now, let's talk sugar. Like salt, sugar can last indefinitely when stored right. Brown sugar holds moisture, so it can get rock hard after a couple of years. It's still safe to eat, but not very fun to use. White sugar is your best bet for long-term storage. And sugar isn't just for cookies. It's a calorie-dense powerhouse. In an emergency, having a quick energy source can make a real difference. You can also use sugar to preserve fruits, make jams, or even treat low blood sugar. Believe it or not, it can even be used on wounds in a pinch. Not ideal, but better than nothing. Together, salt and sugar cover a lot of ground. Salt handles preservation, seasoning, and basic health needs. Sugar brings calories, comfort, and some serious versatility. They don't take up much space, they don't spoil easily, and they do way more than just make your food taste good. So, if you're just starting your emergency stockpile, grab a few bags of salt and sugar. They might not look exciting, but they'll earn their spot in your pantry, guaranteed. 2. Grains. If you're building an emergency pantry, grains should be one of your go-to foods. They're cheap, they're filling, and some can last for decades if stored right. Grains are packed with energy and nutrients. They give you the carbs you need to keep going when life gets rough. And unlike fresh veggies or dairy, they don't spoil easily, especially if you keep them dry and sealed tight. There are two main types: soft grains and hard grains. Soft grains include things like oats, quinoa, and barley. These usually last around 8 years, but if you store them in airtight containers with oxygen absorbers, they can stretch out to 20 years. Hard grains are even more durable. Think wheat, Cajon buckwheat, and rye. These guys are built to last, anywhere from 12 to 30 plus years, depending on how you store them. But here's a heads up, not all grains are created equal. Brown rice might seem healthy, but it goes bad fast, only about 6 months, because of the oils in the bran. Not exactly what you want taking up space in your emergency stash. So stick with white rice or other long-lasting grains instead. Grains also have another superpower, versatility. You can grind them into flour for bread, cook them as porridge, or add them to soups and stews. In a survival situation, having a solid grain supply means you'll always have something to eat. And here's the best part. Most grains are easy to find, affordable, and simple to store. You don't need fancy equipment or special skills. Just grab some Mylar bags, buckets, and oxygen absorbers, and you're good to go. Once you've got your grain sorted, you're already halfway to building a pantry that can survive almost anything. Ready to see what else belongs in your emergency stockpile? Keep watching. Next up is one of the best sources of protein you can store long term. 3. Beans. If you're looking for a food that's cheap, easy to store, and loaded with protein, beans are your best friend. They're like nature's little survival capsules, packed with everything you need to stay strong and full when the power goes out. Dry beans can last more than 10 years if stored right. That's insane. And they don't take up much space either. A few bags of beans can go a long way in keeping your pantry stocked with real nutrition. Beans are rich in protein, fiber, and complex carbs. In an emergency, when fresh meat might not be an option, beans become one of your top sources of protein. Plus, when you pair them with grains like rice or wheat, you get a complete protein, meaning all the amino acids your body needs. There are a lot of different beans to choose from, but some are better for long-term storage than others. Kidney beans, black beans, and pinto beans are the most common, and easiest to find in bulk. These guys are versatile too. You can make chili, soups, stews, burritos, you name it. Want to spice things up? Try adding split peas, garbanzo beans, chickpeas, or azuki beans to your list. These hold up well over time and bring new flavors to your meals. Just keep in mind that oily beans like soybeans don't store as long, so they're better for shorter term use. One thing to love about beans is how simple they are to prep. All you really need is water and a pot. Soak them overnight, boil them until soft, and boom, you've got a hearty meal. But here's a heads up. Always check your beans before cooking. If they look weird, smell off, or feel slimy after soaking, toss them. Safety first, even in survival mode. And just like with grains, how you store your beans matters. Keep them in airtight containers. Mason jars, Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers, or sealed buckets work great. This keeps bugs out and freshness in. 4. Honey. If there's one food that time literally forgets, it's honey. Seriously, scientists have found pots of honey in ancient Egyptian tombs that were still perfectly edible. That's how tough this stuff is. Honey doesn't go bad. It can crystallize over time, sure, but that just means it's still doing exactly what real honey should do. You can even warm it up and it'll go back to its smooth golden state like nothing ever happened. This makes honey a total must-have for any emergency pantry. Not only does it last forever, but it also brings some serious perks to the table, both in the kitchen and beyond. In terms of calories, honey is a powerhouse. It's loaded with natural sugars, which makes it perfect for quick bursts of energy when you need them most. One spoonful and you're good to go. And unlike other sweeteners, it comes with antioxidants and antimicrobial properties. Bonus points for staying healthy during tough times. It can also be used to preserve fruit or make homemade energy bars. Mix it with nuts, oats, or dried berries, and you've got yourself a portable snack that keeps for ages. The best part? Honey takes up very little space and doesn't require refrigeration. Just keep it sealed in a cool, dark place and it'll be ready whenever you are. 5. Nuts. Nuts might not be the first thing you think of when building an emergency pantry, but they should be. They're packed with healthy fats, protein, and calories, which makes them a survival snack superstar. In a world without fresh food, nuts can give you the energy and nutrients you need to keep going. Almonds, peanuts, pecans, pistachios, they all bring something good to the table. Some are crunchy, some are creamy, but they all store better than you might think if you do it right. The tricky part about nuts is their oil content. That's what makes them taste so good, but it's also what causes them to go rancid over time. Once that happens, they're not just bad tasting, they can actually hurt your health. So, how do you keep them fresh for the long haul? First, buy raw or dry roasted without added flavors. Spices and seasonings add moisture and can speed up spoilage. Then, store them in airtight containers like Mylar bags or mason jars with oxygen absorbers. If you have space, keeping them in the freezer or fridge works too. Just make sure the container is sealed tight. Some preppers even vacuum seal their nuts for extra protection. It takes a little more effort, but it can double or triple their shelf life. If you're short on storage space, nut butters like peanut butter or almond butter are another great option. They last longer than whole nuts and can be eaten straight from the jar in a pinch. Just stick with the kinds that don't require refrigeration until opened. And here's a bonus: nuts aren't just snacks. You can use them in meals, desserts, or even grind them into flour for baking. Talk about versatility. So don't skip out on the nuts when building your emergency stockpile. Yes, they take a little more care than rice or beans, but the payoff is worth it. Now let's move on to one of the easiest grab-and-go survival foods out there. 6. Protein bars. When the world goes sideways and you can't just pop into a restaurant or grab a sandwich from the fridge, protein bars might just save your life, or at least your sanity. They're compact, calorie-dense, and packed with nutrients. Best of all, most of them don't need cooking, refrigeration, or any prep work. Just unwrap and eat. Protein bars come in all kinds of flavors and formulas. Some are geared toward athletes, some toward hikers, and others are made specifically for emergency food kits. Either way, they're one of the easiest grab-and-go survival foods you can stock up on. Each bar usually gives you anywhere from 10 to 20 grams of protein, which is huge when fresh meat isn't an option. Plus, they've got fiber, carbs, and healthy fats to keep you going when times get tough. And let's not forget, they taste good. In a post-apocalypse world where everything else tastes like cardboard and regret, having something that actually tastes like chocolate peanut butter bliss, that's gold. Most protein bars have a shelf life between 1 to 2 years, sometimes even longer, depending on how they're stored. Keep them in a cool, dry place, and they'll last much longer than you'd expect. But here's a heads up. Protein bars can melt, and once they turn into a gooey mess, they're kind of a nightmare to handle. So avoid storing them somewhere hot, like a car during summer or next to your water heater. 7. Canned goods. Let's talk about one of the easiest and most budget-friendly survival foods out there: canned goods. You've probably got a few cans in your pantry right now, maybe some tomato sauce, beans, or tuna. But here's the thing, those same cans could keep you fed for years if you never opened them. Canned foods are a prepper's best friend because they're cheap, easy to find, and last a really long time. You don't need special skills or equipment to store them. Just make sure they stay dry, cool, and out of direct sunlight. The best part? They come ready to eat. No cooking required. Just grab a can opener and go. In an emergency situation where power is out and fresh food is gone, that kind of convenience is priceless. Most commercially canned foods have a shelf life between 1 and 5 years, depending on what's inside. High-acid foods like tomatoes and citrus can last up to 18 months. Low-acid foods like meats, vegetables, and soups can last up to 5 years, sometimes even longer if stored properly. And here's a pro tip. Don't just stock meat and veggies. Canned broths and sauces can add flavor and nutrition to even the simplest meals. Just remember, always label and date your cans. Rotate the old stuff out first and replace it with new. It's called the FIFO method, first in, first out, and it's the easiest way to avoid surprises later. So next time you're at the store, grab a few extra cans. You'll be surprised how quickly your emergency stash grows and how much peace of mind you gain. Now let's move on to a modern twist on long-term food storage. 8. Freeze-dried produce. Let's talk about something most people forget when building their emergency stockpile: fruits and veggies. Fresh produce doesn't last long, but that doesn't mean you have to give up on vitamins and flavor in a survival situation. That's where freeze-dried produce comes in. And trust me, it's a game changer. Freeze-drying removes almost all the moisture from food, around 99% of it. That means bacteria and mold can't grow, which keeps your food safe for decades. Some freeze-dried fruits and vegetables can last up to 25 years or more if stored properly. Yeah, you read that right. 25 plus years. And unlike old school canned goods, freeze-dried foods keep their color, shape, and most importantly, taste. Just add water, wait a few minutes, and boom, you've got yourself a fresh tasting apple slice or a tender green bean. They're super lightweight too. That makes them perfect for backpacking trips, emergency kits, or just keeping extra on hand in case things get rough at home. You can find everything from strawberries and bananas to peas, carrots, and even full meals like scrambled eggs or chili made with freeze-dried ingredients. But here's the best part. They don't need refrigeration. Store them in a cool, dark place and they'll be ready whenever you are. No cooking required, though you can heat them up if you want. One thing to watch out for, once the package is opened, they start absorbing moisture from the air, so it's smart to either use them quickly or reseal them tightly. Some preppers even buy in bulk and store them in Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers for extra protection. That way each serving stays fresh until you're ready to eat it. Now, I know what you're thinking. Aren't these the weird astronaut snacks? Well, yeah, but that's kind of the point. If NASA trusts this stuff to fuel astronauts in space, you can bet it's solid for survival situations down here on Earth. So if you want to keep your meals colorful, tasty, and actually nutritious, don't skip out on freeze-dried produce. Ready to move on? Next up, the secret to making survival food actually taste good. 9. Spices. Let's get real for a second. Surviving an emergency doesn't mean you have to eat like a sad robot forever. Spices are one of those things people forget about when building their stockpile. But if you've ever tried eating plain rice and beans for the 10th day in a row, you know how important flavor really is. The good news? Most spices last forever, or at least several years, without going bad, and they take up almost no space in your pantry. Ground spices like garlic powder, paprika, and chili powder can last 2 to 3 years before they start losing flavor. Whole spices like peppercorns, cinnamon sticks, and dried herbs, think oregano, thyme, rosemary, can go even longer, up to 5 years or more. Store them in a cool, dark place and they'll stay fresh way longer. If you want to be extra prepared, vacuum seal them or store them in mason jars with oxygen absorbers. That way they're protected from moisture, light, and air, the enemies of flavor. Here's something most people don't realize. Spices aren't just for taste. Some have serious survival perks. Cayenne pepper, it can help stop bleeding when applied to a wound. Cinnamon and cloves have natural antibacterial properties. Garlic powder isn't just good on rice, it might actually help boost your immune system. And let's not forget, having a few favorite seasonings around can do wonders for morale. In a world where everything feels uncertain, being able to spice up your canned beans or protein bar can make a big difference. So next time you're at the store, grab a few extra bottles. You don't need a full spice rack, but having basics like salt, pepper, garlic, onion powder, cumin, and maybe a hot sauce stash will keep your meals interesting. You'll thank yourself later when everyone else is staring at their bland survival meal, and you're sitting there with something that actually tastes like food. Now let's talk about the one thing most people completely forget when planning for emergencies. 10. Water storage. Let's talk about the one thing most people forget when planning for emergencies. Water. Sure, you've got your beans, rice, and honey all lined up in neat rows, but if the taps stop running and you don't have a way to get clean water, everything else doesn't matter much. You can survive weeks without food, but only about 3 days without water. That's why storing water is just as important, if not more, than stocking up on survival foods. Now, I know what you're thinking. Can't I just boil lake water or melt snow? Technically, yes. Realistically, not always safe and definitely not convenient when you're already stressed out. So let's make this simple. How much should you store and how do you keep it safe? The general rule of thumb is 1 gallon per person per day. That covers drinking, cooking, and basic hygiene. For a family of 4 of us, that's at least 120 gallons for a month's supply. It adds up fast. You can buy bottled water in plastic jugs, which is fine for short-term storage. But for long-term, you'll want to invest in large water containers or barrels made from food-grade plastic. These can hold 5 to 55 gallons and are designed to keep water fresh for years. But here's the catch. Water can go bad if stored improperly. Plastic bottles degrade over time, especially when exposed to heat or sunlight. So keep your water in a cool, dark place, like a basement or garage closet. Also, rotate your supply every 6 months to a year. Use the old water for plants or cleaning, then refill with fresh. Want to go the extra mile? Add water purification tablets, filters, or even a portable filtration system to your emergency kit. That way, if your supply runs low, you can still treat questionable water sources safely. And don't forget, pets need water too. If you have animals, factor them into your calculations. Water might not be flashy like honey or protein bars, but it's the silent hero of any good emergency plan. Once you've got your water sorted, you're looking at a solid, well-rounded stockpile that can keep you going no matter what life throws your way. Still with me? Great. Now let's jump into smart storage tips so everything you've stocked stays fresh and ready when you need it most. So you've got all your food picked out? Great, but here's the thing. It doesn't matter how long shelf-stable foods are supposed to last if you don't store them right. Storage is the secret weapon of every serious prepper. It's what turns a random pile of cans and bags into a real, usable emergency pantry that can survive years, and maybe even a few apocalypses. Let's start with containers. This is where most people mess up. Not all storage bins are created equal. If air or moisture gets in, your food won't last nearly as long as it should. Mason jars are like the superheroes of food storage. They're glass, which means bugs can't chew through them, and they keep moisture out. Perfect for things like beans, rice, or sugar. Just add an oxygen absorber, seal the lid tight, and you're good to go. Then there are Mylar bags. These shiny foil-like bags are amazing at blocking light and keeping oxygen out. Pair them with oxygen absorbers, and you've got a near-perfect way to store grains, dried fruits, or even spices for years. And don't forget 5-gallon buckets. These are ideal for bulk items like flour, oats, or pasta. Again, use oxygen absorbers and store them somewhere cool and dark. Now let's talk about labeling, because trust me, 6 months from now, you won't remember what's in that bag labeled stuff. Label everything with what it is and when you stored it. That way you know what to eat first and what can wait. It also helps avoid mystery meals later on. Another big tip, use the FIFO method. First in, first out. Always grab the oldest stuff first. Rotate your stockpile regularly so nothing sits too long and goes bad. Location matters too. Heat and sunlight are enemies of long-term food storage. The best place for your emergency pantry is somewhere cool, dry, and dark, like a basement, garage closet, or under the bed if space is tight. Also be careful with humidity. Moisture ruins food storage. If you live in a damp area, consider using desiccant packs or even a dehumidifier in your storage space. Oh, and don't ignore pests. Mice love your survival stash almost as much as you do. Store food off the floor in sealed containers, and check regularly for any signs of unwanted guests. And remember, water is just as important as food. Don't forget to store enough for everyone in your household, including pets. If this video gave you some useful tips or made you rethink what's in your pantry, smash that like button below. I want to know what foods you already have stocked. Drop them in the comments. Are you team beans or are you all about the protein bars? Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell icon so you never miss another video.